Yeah. Sorry, my house is like still being moved into. We just got
Yeah, yeah.
both floors
Now,
redone.
yeah, now we're live, and I say hi and welcome to Louis Reviews. This is a live stream, and I have the director of this good movie, Beyond Skyline.
That's the best
Leland.
cover. That's the best cover that they
I
have.
really like this cover.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Liam O'Donnell, writer director of Beyond Skyline, and I'm happy to be here with you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a few questions. This is your first feature film?
That's right, as a director.
Yeah, because you worked on some other movies. You worked on the first one.
Yeah, I was the co-writer and producer on Skyline.
Yeah, and you worked on Iron Man 2.
Iron Man 2, fun, small gig. Wasn't I didn't get to hang out with Robert Downey Jr. or anything like that, but yeah, we got to do a cool little sequence with the failed Iron Man tests.
Oh, okay.
And then the other big one, the first movie I worked on was Aliens versus Predator Requiem, or 2 in some territories. That was the one I worked on when I was 24.
Yeah, I remember that movie.
Yes, it's remembered.
Yeah, for the good and the bad. So.
Right.
Yeah. The trailer was nice, though.
Yeah, well, the trailer had the right color correction. The movie didn't.
No, it was so black, the movie.
Yeah, the movie's too dark. It was actually, I watched it again recently for a podcast for AVP Galaxy. And, I have a newer 4K TV, and I kind of got the color correction right on my TV, and it looked okay. But you have to mess with the contrast quite a bit and the black levels, and you can kind of fix what got a little too dark in the DI.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot more entertaining when you know the alien's actually there.
Yeah, when you like in the sewer, it's so dark. I was like, what's happening? I can't see shit. So
there's a really cool shot in the power plant where it cranes down from the Predator, and it's a reveal that the alien's right underneath him on the catwalk. And like, if you have the wrong thing on, it's just black. So it's like, why am I seeing beneath his feet? There's nothing there. So yeah, there were some technical disappointments with that movie.
Yeah. Let's talk about your movie, Beyond Skyline.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and my first question is, you helped, like we said, write the first one. Yeah, it came in 2010, and
that's right.
Was the plan from the beginning to have a sequel to Beyond Skyline, Skyline, like Beyond Skyline, or was the script a different kind of movie that turned into Beyond Skyline?
It's like both times. It's always evolving. The first movie was very much like we saw as a Twilight Zone episode, so it didn't seem like to us that it really was like, oh, this is a franchise starter when we were making it.
Yeah.
And then because we just wanted the ending to be really creepy and bleak, and like everybody's, it's not like every other movie where it's gonna have a happy ending. The aliens are gonna win because aliens normally would win.
Yeah.
And then at the very end we'll have some sort of hint that like something on the ship recognizes her, and it's weird. And that was really what the script was. And we got a lot of notes. Actually got notes from Jeff Nichols, the filmmaker, who was obviously, he's close with Brian Kavanaugh Jones, who was an executive producer on Skyline. And so he had him read the script, and we talked to him, and he was like, there's really an opportunity for something cool on that ship. And he kind of pushed us to go further. And then even right before we were shooting the last day, I remember at Colin's house, we were like blocking out the ending, and it got like 3 times longer than what it was in the script. So then we shot one day of green screen of what that interior ship was. And then even in post, once they got, with their animation team, it got even longer and weirder, and it became really cool. It was my favorite part of the movie, but I could see, it feels like it's a different movie, and it feels like a different energy than everything that's come before it. and so it sort of overstayed its welcome, or maybe its structural size of what that movie would be. But it very much felt like, oh, okay, we're setting up a sequel now. And so that was like through the process, you're like, okay, there's more story to be told, and there's more fun to be had. And I think if we had maybe come up with some of those ideas earlier, because we did do a reshoot and integrate more to set up that ending, in once Relativity bought the movie. But I think if we had come up with it even earlier, we would have probably shortened the second act. And, you know, if we had had the money, shoot more on the ship with them and try to end with some sort of heroic beat, like maybe he crashes the ship and they get away. That's probably what the first movie would have been if we had more time and more money. Yeah. But because we kind of stumbled into those ideas late, and it evolved the way it did, it sort of felt like a different movie at the end. But so then we're thinking about what are we going to do for a sequel, and just because of where that last one ended, it felt odd to do like the Halloween 2 and just go boom right up from the ending to that. It just seemed like you'd be like, wait, where am I? What? Like, for new audiences, I think it would have been a weird way to start a movie. And so that was where I thought, even initially back in 2010, before the movie came out, they asked us to come up with some sequel ideas, and I felt pretty strongly that we should start with new characters and have them meet up with the characters of the first movie. And originally, the characters of the first movie were a much bigger part. But that was always like, okay, the first act, we're going to do this. I wanted to do this father and son story because the first movie was about a new father. I wanted the second movie to be about an old father. And so I wanted to be a father, you know, bailing his son out of jail, and see some of the stuff that we had hinted at in the first one happening throughout the city. And it was a much longer first act. It was almost like a first half in a lot of ways. And I just kind of had to keep whittling that down and getting more and more surgical about it. And I think it would have been, it's fun. There's like a fun element of like, oh, that was what happens in the first movie. And I like how right now it doesn't overstay its welcome. I think if you did that for like a whole movie or even 45 minutes, you'd be like, okay, but like, I didn't, you know, it's just like getting a cell phone from a different point of view in a concert. You know what I mean? Like it has to be, you kind of want to hear some new songs eventually. So
yeah, of course.
I think that it was a cool way to make it accessible and like a standalone in a way. But you know, I got to have my cake and eat it too. I got to actually finish the story and have those characters, you know, have a big bearing on this story and have everything intersect and have the legacy of them quite literally be like what saves the day. Yeah. So, you know, it was for me, it was kind of something that hadn't really been done in a movie like this before, and I thought could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was actually a pretty smart move, I thought, because I didn't know there was going to be a sequel, because the first movie kind of got mixed reviews. It was
divisive as well. It was very negative, and it seems it's funny. Nowadays people like it more. It at the time, 7 years ago, and I'd say for the first 2 or 3 years, it had a pretty toxic reputation. Yeah. But now I'll see kids that grew up on that one, and because if you see that the first Skyline when you're like anywhere from, I think, you know, 9 to 12 years old, there's not really any other movies that end that bleakly like that. And so I think it had a big impact on a certain genre fan that is now like 18, 19, and they like it more than most people. And I've noticed that from the reaction to this, because my movie's so different and they want it to be more like the first one. Whereas most other people that didn't like the first one are like, oh, thank God this one's not like the first one. So, you know, you can't please everybody, but I think it's kind of cool either way. I think it's cool that kids, because we don't think of it because we're older, you know, when you're like my tastes, obviously our tastes evolve and change, but like, you know, my taste from 27 to 35 are still on a pretty, you know, the same, you know, spectrum, but when you're going from, you know, 9 to 16, you're two completely different people. And so that's what's kind of cool about making a movie and then making a sequel over the span of time and seeing how people grow and change and react to things. So it's been interesting. I feel like the first one is gotten a little bit of a reassessment, but yeah, at the time, very negative, and it was something of a weird, a way of trying to sell this one like it's a sequel, and at the same time we're trying to show how different it is, and you're kind of navigating straddling a fence, in almost every aspect. So it was definitely something unique, because usually a movie with that sort of divisive reaction just isn't going to get a sequel made. But because our costs were so low, and it made so much money overseas and then on DVD and TV, it still plays and it still does pretty well. So there was an appetite, for more, and so I'm just glad that there was, and I'm glad that we got the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, because when I saw that there was a trailer, I saw Beyond Skyline, I thought, is this a sequel? And I was started looking at it, I was like, shit, this is a sequel. And then I thought, oh no. And then I thought, when I saw Frank and Iko, I was like, oh yeah, now you got my interest. And I looked at it and I was like, shit, this looks good. And I thought it was a really great move to make it not like a direct sequel, because I thought, how are you going to make the movie after everyone is dead? But then you did a smart move to make it simultaneously with different characters at the same time, and that I thought was really, really smart, really good move.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because the trailers so avoided Elaine and Jared and any really that weird alien story. I wonder if that's something we should have done at some point. I know we released a clip, but maybe on the second or third trailer added that in so that made it very clear that it was a sequel, because I still notice people just being confused about, is this or isn't it? But it's fun. It's fun when people are watching the movie not knowing, because I'm on Twitter and I see people's reactions, and it's usually at that half-hour mark when they realize that it does connect to the first one is generally kind of cool.
Blue lights, they were flying to the sky, blue lights. I remember this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But I like the title too. It wasn't Skyline 2. It was something different, like this movie Beyond Skyline. It's a smart move.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then when I saw that Frank and Iko were the main characters, I was like, shit, this I want to see. And then I come to my second question. Was Frank and Iko your first choice as the main characters, or did you have anyone else in mind? And if so, who did you have in mind?
They're both the first choice. I mean, Frank, I wrote the script for back in 2013, before Purge Anarchy. It was from Warrior and The Gray. I just became a really big fan, and then he had a really great smaller role in End of Watch. So he was definitely the first choice, and that was why I really wanted to send it to him first and pushed it, because I knew I could authentically be like, I've been thinking about you for 2 years in this role, and this is what what I wanted to do. And so I think he could tell that when we Skyped just like this, and I kind of made my pitch. And so he was always the first choice. And then for Sua, I hadn't thought about exactly who it was yet, because I didn't know where we would be shooting. So I didn't cast that one in my head. And it was when we were in talks with Frank. We hadn't really talked about anyone else casting wise. And we were over in Indonesia scouting that we talked with one of the producers there, and he suggested Iko. And I was like, oh, yeah, of course. I just didn't think it was, for some reason it felt like that wouldn't be a reality. And then it happened to be that they were available, and the project they were on had just kind of fallen apart. And so it all worked out perfectly for us. So yeah, I mean, I couldn't think of a better actor for either role than the ones we got, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, they're perfect for the role. So But had you seen Eco's movies before?
Yeah, no, I went to see. It's funny, like 2011 is like the year of movie going that I feel like made this movie in a weird way, because that The Raid and The Gray and I think Warrior all came out that year. And,
yeah.
And so you could even check my Twitter feed back in 2011. Like I went to see The Raid in the theater with my friends and was like, what, you know, everyone was talking about it from, you know, from Toronto that year and raving, and I had to go check it out when it was in the theater myself. And it was one of those like, just one of the better theatrical experiences I can remember in the past decade, of just being like really in and totally sucked in. It's great music, great editing, and just such a, you know, a perfect, simple story.
Yeah.
That I loved Mad Dog too. It was like, he kind of was my favorite character in the first Raid, because he was just honest, and he had just like everyone else is like you know, double crossing each other or not being who they are, and I just liked how Mad Dog was like, puts the gun down and it's like, you know, this is what it's about. And he actually, like, it's usually the hero who has to fight off two people, but to the two heroes having to team up to take on Mad Dog made him this sort of, you know, legendary bad guy. So it was awesome to be like, oh, and Yan Yan too. And the chief role was pretty small in the script. It was like, you know, he was just a guy originally that had the flamethrower and got like killed by an alien, and that was it, like in that scene. And I was like, okay, well, how do I make this guy into a bigger character and weave him through the whole story, so that you know, fans of him are going to be like, well, you can't just keep Yan in a prison cell the whole time. Like, you know, he's like, it's like Chekhov's Yan. Like, if you see Yan, you know that he's that gun has to be fired at some point. And so that stuff was fun to me. It felt like a Western character, you know, where there's always like the crazy guy that they have to bring into the jail, and then, you know, once the bad guys come in, it's like, you got to let the crazy guy out and give him a gun because we're outmanned. And so that's how I saw those scenes at the end with them. Scenes were actually even a little longer, but just in the end, you have to cut the pacing. But there was a nice moment where Eco actually, we filmed it, that he goes down the tunnel and he's going to leave him. And he stopped, and he had this really nice moment where he turned and saw him and was like, and went back and freed Yan Yan at the end. And so it was something I really liked and wanted in, but you know, you got to keep the pace going in that third act. Little moments like that, sometimes you have to sacrifice. So
yeah, it was a big third act. I really liked it. The big alien.
And just so people know, yes, I'm drinking cheap light beer at 3:40 in the afternoon.
Yeah, I have empty whiskey glass here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, my first one this year. So.
I finished my yard work and I needed to relax. So, all right, what's the next question?
Yes, this next one is like we said, this is your first feature movie, and can you describe the feeling you had the first day of shooting? What's going through your head? Were you nervous, excited, happy, worried?
You're very, very nervous. Luckily, the first day of shooting was the Frank Eco fight scene. You know, it was their standoff in the jungle. So it was everything in that location where we're in that sort of rice paddy with the huts. On the way there, it was about an hour drive, and it was like a rainy morning. And I've been scouting this place over and over, and I was like, this doesn't look familiar. So we got lost like an hour that morning already. So it was like first day. We get lost. It was just so challenging and far up, and in getting everybody there and getting everything right. I honestly can't remember much of like pre-shooting, but I luckily, you know, the first couple shots are just them kind of walking in, and so I could kind of be calm and just focus on the, you know, the shots with Chris. And then I was super nervous about the actual, you know, acting of the standoff scene and how that was going to play out. because I'd never directed, you know, the actors before. I'd been working with Frank and Iko, and then the rest of the team on the fight scene. So I was very comfortable. Like, if I can just get through this acting to the fight scene, I'll be okay for the day. But and I, you know, I one of the reasons why I wanted to work, one I even, you know, wrote a role for such a, you know, like an older actor, is that I feel like a lot of first timers, like, you know, we kind of do horror movies with younger actors as the leads, and then people complain about your acting. And I was like, okay, well, my first movie, I want to have like a veteran actor who, you know, is going to come in and be a pro, and I'm going to learn from.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly, you know, what the advantage was, is that, you know, he would, you know, we'd do the first take, and energy's not right, and we, you know, had to keep working and then moving around. It was a lot of blocking because it's 4 actors plus this baby, which is only in like one of the shots. The other shots, it's a fake baby. And so, you know, there's a lot of moving parts, and I think what most nervous first timers do is I just overshot it. You know, I just was like trying to get every angle and as many takes as I could. And then I also learned pretty quickly, like, oh, Frank is good in every take. I don't have to do more than 4 with him. And so it's like, he's like what you want on the first take. And so even as we went on, like, if we were pressed for time, like, Frank gets 2 takes. You know, they're both going to be good. It's just in case there's a camera mess up, like it once. And so, you know, we got, I think, about halfway through with me overshooting, and then it rained. So then just a big monsoon of rain comes down, and where we're looking just doesn't look the same anymore. It's all dark and it's a deeper brown. And so we're like, all right, well, let's shoot the rest of that scene tomorrow, and let's turn the camera around and start, you know, shooting the fight scene. And so then what was already a kind of a wet patty was just turned into a sloppy, you know, mud bath. And once we get into there, I just felt, you know, really, we had just done it so many times. And but they were both so excited. And like, Frank was so excited because I think he even tweeted at the time, was like, this is the best fight scene of my career. Like, cause he'd been in movies that he's had fight scenes, but never really at that amount of choreo, and like no stunt double standing in or on either actor, you know, cause he's done fight scenes with other actors where it's been against a stunt double, or by, you know, availability, it's vice versa. So this was like, you know, Iko doesn't have a stunt double. Like he has one that, that helps with his choreo as part of his team, Yandi, but like Iko did every single thing that Iko did in this movie. The only stunt double shot in it is Frank did not go through the hut, but Iko went through the hut with the stunt double. But it was the first day of shooting. I didn't even if he had wanted to, I wasn't going to let him go neck first through a wood hut. It's kind of like one of those things where you hold your breath when Iko did it, because like, we built the hut, it's all safe, it's all collapsible, but it's still like wood sticks. You fall, it's just like he just gets up and a stick is like hanging out of his side. You know, you just, oh my god. So that when Frank kind of picked Iko up, and the second take they did it, I was like, can you try to just slam him right in that puddle there? I think it'll look great, and that's what's in the movie. And he picked him up, and you know, Iko really went high with it, and he just slammed him in. And I like, let's just put my hands up, like, you know, like, you know, it was a weird moment of, you know, the things that you've done in your life that like prepare you for what your job is. And when, in this case, is like, I remember like my dad took me to pro wrestling when I was 10, and I like loved pro wrestling all through high school. And then it got to a point where he's like, why are you still watching this? You're too old. Like, you know, like, stop wasting your time with pro wrestling and video games about pro wrestling and video games in general and Mortal Kombat and all this stuff that, you know, you think is just kind of, you know, for fun. And then and then I wrestled in high school as well. And so all those things that, you know, you thought like that was just a time and place in my life. It's like, it came into play, you know, and it was part of this first day of making something. So it had this, it wasn't lost on me on how great of an opportunity it was. Like, wow, it was happening, and how lucky I was. So yeah, it was a pretty great first day all in all. And then, you know, we finished with them down in the water, which that fight scene went much longer at the end, where they had like sticks and they were hitting each other in the face, and the blocking we did at the end, I ended up completely reblocking it the next day, but it was like everyone's like, okay, this movie is going to be, you know, a pretty wild ride. You know, we just had the lead actors beat the hell out of each other in mud and water in the middle of you know, above a waterfall in Indonesia. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was a great scene. I enjoyed that very much. Let's see. I have my next question. I think we can skip because I can tell you. It was half of the movie takes place in Indonesia. How did it come that you shoot there? Was it because of that's equals from there, or?
No, it was because you know, I had said it in Laos for a few reasons. One was you know, just my wife was born in Laos, and so that was something I was thinking about. And then two, it was a place where, you know, there is a drug trade that has you know, that kind of fit into some of the things that we're trying to say. And then three, you know, because America's, you know, relationship with them, having, you know, a history of war and a secret bombing war of things falling from the sky on people, I couldn't pass up on the you know, on the one-to-one between that, how that it was an alien invasion in a way, and now the aliens are back. And so you know, Laos is a communist country still, and they've just kind of started really getting into film production, and there's been a couple of really great movies from there. But it was one of those things where for us and the size of the production we're going to do, we were thinking either Malaysia, Thailand, or Indonesia, and so we just went on a scouting trip to Indonesia first, and we met with Infinite Studios, and we saw that what their stages were like, and the locations in Yogyakarta, and it was like, what? There's no reason to go anywhere else. This is just the place that this makes sense to make the movie, and because we were in Indonesia, that was what the connection with Iko and Yanyan. Like, oh well, they're just a short plane ride away in Java. So it all kind of just worked out the way it was supposed to really quickly, and it's one of the reasons why. You know, I think scouting trips are just so valuable. Even if you don't make that movie, like anytime you can get that opportunity, it's like it gives you ideas. And sometimes, like in this case, we just kind of caught fire and everything, you know, came together.
Yeah, great. Let's see. Next question is, you have some big names in the movie, like Frank, who's been in Warrior, Winter Soldier, Kingdom, and Civil War. And we have Iko, The Raid 2, Star Wars, The Force Awakens, and Bojana in Itonia, Drag Me to Hell, Devil, and Jacob, Sons of Anarchy, Luke Cage, and a lot of other series. So how was it to working with them and tell them what to do?
Yeah, it's a pretty big cast.
Yeah.
And that's cool hearing all the different credits. It was great. I mean, it was like, it's always kind of different energy in each place, like, and that's also from like your crew. Like the Indonesian version of the movie is almost like that we actually filmed a lot of the alien ship stuff in Indonesia as well. So the big, like when Frank wakes up and he's moving through the ship, that was all a set in Indonesia. The corridor that they moved through was all in Indonesia. So everything there had like a different energy. We had more time. We had, because it's cheaper to shoot there, we had more shoot days. And the crew was very hungry and not cynical, and just wanted to do a great job. So I had a great time and a feeling there. And I think because you're so far away from home, you know, that everyone bonded, and it felt like, you know, this kind of summer camp quality
Yeah.
and we're working 6-day weeks, and we're all like at this weird resort on this island, and there's nowhere else to go. And so we would have like cookouts on our day off on the beach, and so it became a really good bonding experience, and I'm still friends with a lot of people from that. But then the different other shoots, like the stuff that we did in LA, it was like we did a week here, and then we had to do a break, and then we do another week there, and so it was much more kind of run and gun, not as much time. The crew was a smaller crew in LA, and so we were just always up against it schedule wise in that back half of the movie, the stuff in LA and Toronto, to the point that there's like a couple scenes that just didn't have enough time for what they needed. So every actor, kind of comes in, like I feel like with like what we were able to do in Indonesia with Callan, and his character Harper, like we got to experiment with that quite a bit. I did like he would do a different take every take, and he was kind of trying. That's what I was nervous about that, because it's so the opposite of Frank. Frank is almost like he's like pre-programmed. He's got his script with all his notes and his adjustments on the page that he's going to use to get there. And so, and it's pretty much dead on to what you'd want. But Callan would not like he was less prepared, but he would be like, okay, here's my prepared take, but now I'm going to try this one, and now I want to try this one. And he'd be begging me for more takes. And it was like, at first I was like, where are we? Is it going to match? But then once I got into editing, it was really kind of cool to see, like, oh, I didn't even notice that on the day what he was giving me there, and like how he's diffusing this situation with Frank with just like his energy, because I think it was like Frank's kind of like giving him shit in a few scenes when they first meet up, and you could have played it like hey, I'm the boss of this place, and he's going to try to push him back, but he just was kind of like, I don't give a fuck like what you're going to bring to it, and it just made it made it an interesting kind of non-standard, non-cliche interaction between them. So yeah, it was like, and then, but like, what interesting one was Johnny in the end, because we had someone else cast for Trent's role when we were in Indonesia, but Trent never went to Indonesia. And so there's another actor, similar looking sort of to Johnny, because I had to have a stunt double for Trent in the scene where he got pulled up that we shot in Indonesia. And then luckily the other actor we had left for a TV show because the movie, went longer than we thought it was going to go. And so I was lucky to get Johnny, and also lucky that he looked like the stunt double I'd already shot. I didn't have to do any CG faces or anything like that, or like a CG head. So yeah, so he kind of was to me like this late energy boost into the movie of like a completely different energy acting wise than anyone else was doing. And he's kind of, very much almost method, like in the moment, and he is that kid that night. And he had that like like coiled anger in him, and it would have to me just be like, he's your dad, you just got to listen to him, and then he would kind of calm himself in those moments, and we'd get the reactions that we need. But so yeah, each time it was like a different movie. I feel like I made like 4 different movies with this. And another great consistent person for me that you mentioned was Boyana, and she was just kind of like a rock, who again was always prepared, but also very funny. And if I needed a scene that was like there was some like overwritten kind of cheesy thing between her and Kanya on their scene on the hillside, and it was too much. When you knew if that was what the dialogue was, it was going to get cut. And so I went to them and this is my own writing, by the way, that I'm criticizing, so it's okay. But I went to her that morning and was just like, what do you think? Like, it was just like, we're talking about, it was a conversation about the two of them talking about the little girl. And I just felt like we had covered it already. And I wanted to have some sort of moment between the two of them. And so she came up with the line about, oh, this, the guns, fights, and bombs sort of thing. And so it just was this nice little, like, they'd been fighting the whole time. They have their little resolution. And then, of course, we're not going to see much more of Kanya after that. So she was a great resource for me. And, I think, and she's doing really, really well right now. She's got a show on CBS, I think, called Instinct. And I'm just very happy for her.
Yeah, good. Let's see. Next question. Which influence did your actors have on making the movie?
Well, that was, I kind of gave you one already.
Yeah, no.
I'd say like Frank is just a huge influence. Once I cast him, and he did a lot of notes, mainly on the first act, but then also like I would know some of the stuff. Once we started working with each other, I could anticipate what he was and wasn't going to like, and what there was like different things that would like almost like overly done stuff, like the rocket launcher at the end.
Mm.
It in the script and in the storyboards, it initially jammed, and it wouldn't fire, and he took the wedding ring and like smashed it in there, and that's what made it fire. And it was just one of those like, more written-y things. And I just remember the morning that day, I was like, he's not gonna like that. And I was like, so we're not gonna do the ring thing, right? And he's like, you're getting it. And sometimes those things are fun, and you kind of have to do it, and it needs it. But other ones, it was just like I could anticipate what was going to be within his comfort zone and how he saw the character. But yeah, I think the first act got so grounded because of his performance, and then I think that's what sort of makes the movie sneak up on people, because it gets progressively more wild and genre as it goes. But he's always playing it real and playing it straight, and so that I like that. It's like a little bit like Jason Statham does really well too, where he's in the first Crank, like the movie is going off the rails around him, but he's playing it pretty straight and forward. And so he's definitely a huge influence on it. And then the other biggest influence, of course, would be Iko, just because getting like a leading man in a supporting role changes your movie in a lot of ways. It's like a gravitational change where I think if he had been a more supporting actor for that role, you'd have less scenes with him. I know, once you just like, he walks onto your screen and you're on set, you're just like, the camera loves this guy, and you just want to keep working with him. And so, we had like his fight scene against the pilot in the underground. I don't know if that scene makes it in a cut if it's not Iko. That might be one of those things where like, the movie's a little too long, but no one ever brought that up to me as something to cut, because he has so much screen presence, and it's so fun to watch him fight. So that kind of changed quite a bit. In fact, it would be, I just kept adding more and more fight scenes from him, that one between him and Frank, one for his intro. That one in the underground, believe it or not, was always like sort of a scene. It just there wasn't a martial arts component, but there was always a siege and like a scrambling, fight to the death. And then, of course, the ending battle got like, 8 times longer. The initial cut of it was like, probably 3 times as long as what's in the movie. And we just shot so much. I mean, that was the most setups of any scene in the movie. We did so much more than that's in there, but I think we kind of boiled it down to its essential elements that were still the most fun. And so, that he changed just, he had a big practical change on how much of, it became so much more of a daunting film to make. But also, I think it's the reason why, people are reacting the way they are, because it's just something you haven't seen before.
Yeah. It's a great mix of different stuff, like the alien movie, action, and martial arts, and big alien remoted puppets with martial arts and like ending with the suplex and the round kick. I was like,
the big battle that was always there. Like that was always something that we wanted to build to, because we called these things pilots, and we're like, and actually in an way earlier draft, that's how I had them escape from the ship. Was that I had this is like when the other characters were still in the movie, and I was like, Jared got into a tanker and like grabbed Mark and the other people, the survivors, and jumped out of the ship. And I just was like, once he's in the tanker, like what's going to be cooler in the movie? I was like, I got to save, once we get one of those big monsters on our side, that I got to end the movie pretty soon after that, because I can't, like, it's the most fun thing. So let's build up to it instead. And so that was just an early, probably way too expensive version of the movie. And I think the fact that it became Trent to pilot it, and became the kid who, the screw up kid who kind of finally gets to save the day at the end.
On redemption.
That was a fun thing for me. I remember talking to, Johnny about Trent's arc, and it's like, well, he wanted to have his, redemption kind of before he turns into the Trent alien. And I was like, no, you can't get too much of that, because that's his redemption at the end. He's like, oh, it was, it's hard to think about yourself as, a big, a big alien.
That was the best part of the movie, the third act, the big alien. Yeah. And when it just the round kick and the body slam, I was like, oh, this is so awesome. It was great. I was smiling and laughing and cheering too. I was like, yes, like, fuck yes, this is awesome.
Oh, good.
It was great. Let's see. We had... we can take another question here. What kind of difficulties did you come across in making the movie? Because I knew you were in Indonesia filming, then you have to have some Skype meetings with people in LA, and time difference and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, well that's just logistics, but yeah, that's even before going, because you're Skyping already. But yeah, it was kind of one of those you name it situations of if anything could go wrong, did go wrong at some point. Like we had. It was rainy season there, so we lost one of the sets. It went like 8 feet of water overnight. This is where they climb out of the river. I was worried because the river looked like it was like a trickle, like the day before, and then it's this rushing river in the movie. That was all overnight. But I had a set that was like lower. It would have been more expensive because I would have had to CG the alien ship into the background. So it was a happy accident. But it was a really cool kind of low angle on the riverbed of them just like crawling out. And so then once that was gone, I had to like spend my whole morning scouting and finding that other place. And luckily we had that a crane that could kind of swing out over the river. And that's actually only Antonio is the one who went in the real river on that shot. That's 2 stunt doubles for Frank and Boyana. They were like, test this water. I don't know what what's in it. And Antonio's like, I don't care, I'll get in. And so, I love him. He just he did whatever we asked. It did help that his stepson was a producer on the movie, so he could just yell at his dad to get in the water. But so that was one of the more just kind of practical challenges. And then when we were shooting a few days later, when we were doing the end temples, it kept raining at like 1 o'clock every day. And so the stuff that I was doing in the morning, it was like all them walking along the temples. We shot a lot more of that than what ends up in the movie. And those things, those scenes, those like Lord of the Rings scenes that I love in movies where it's like the characters walking into beautiful establishing, they're actually really time consuming, just even getting the actors to go from like A to B and reset and the cameras to reset. Like you get so much less than if you're in a room doing a scene that morning. So like, okay, I got them moving through the temples. All right, we're doing a company change. We're going to the second temple and it rains. And you're like, crap. Okay, we have to call the day. We had all these exteriors. So then the next day I get them at the other temple. They're walking up to the other temple. They're about to get in, and it rains. And it's like, okay, so I just have 2 shoot days. I only have like 4 shoot days at this temple, and 2 of them have taken up like 15 seconds of screen time. And I had like massive things that I wanted to do there. And so that was like, that was this really gut check moment where we just said, we're going to call the day at noon, and we're going to come back at midnight, and we're going to shoot all this other stuff. We're going to make it at night, because it was kind of a different day thing. And there is like a time change that happens in the middle of the battle that like doesn't quite make sense, but this is why. So I needed to get, you know, more of it done at night, because it was not going to behave for us during the day. It was raining every day at that one time. So we and it was a great kind of moment on set where, you know, Frank could see how nervous I was, and Matthew and Greg, we all kind of came together, and it was just like, we have to make this decision now. We have to do it. And I just put my trust in the producers, like, okay, I trust you, but it's going to work. And it ended up like the next 2 nights doing that, you know, saved the movie in those locations and getting those shots. And the last day that we had there was like maybe the best day of the entire movie. That's when we have Frank waking up and all the extras and the kind of war scenes around him. It was just like everybody just brought their A game, because we knew we were so up against it.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like, I think it's still just the best full day of the movie. Even that little fight scene where he finds the claw and kills that first alien, I just wrote that at lunch, because I was just like, it was missing something. You know, we had him get the claw, but he wasn't under duress. And to get that little bit of a moment, like sometimes those things can just become a time suck. And we got it so fast and everything that we needed, and it was really intense, and it just perfectly built to the next thing. And then, you know, we finished getting the spinning shot around them, and we knew we were going to be doing the rest of the fight in the back lot, you know, after the Christmas break. So that was a kind of those first 2 weeks were a real trial by fire on like the production standpoint. And then there was still just always some new challenge along the way. But the biggest challenge of the movie, I think, came out of having to do green screen for the silo in the second act, because I really wanted to build that set, and it just became impractical to get the money for how big it was. But I still think even if I could do it over again, I would have still fought to like dress the walls of it with the same kind of latex goo that we had, and just try to do whatever we could in camera there, because that became every single shot in like, you know, a 20-minute sequence that intercuts throughout the entire second act is a VFX shot. And even when you're screening it to people and trying to get feedback and notes, it's hard when they're just like, I just saw a guy running around a green tube, you know? Yeah. And so one little trick that we did was we would key it and turn all of it black, so that you just see the actor moving in a black space. And it seemed to help, because this is an alien movie. You're just seeing black instead of that bright green. But that really became a problem of like editing, getting the right pace for the movie and the right vibe for the movie, and getting the shot count down. And so I think, you know, that was the one that was like this slow moving problem that I tried everything I could to avoid, and it still ended up rolling me over. But luckily it did have some advantages, in that there was like the end fight of Frank in the tentacle. Mm-hmm. The one that we shot for that fight, I had this in my head, it was going to be this really amazing moment where he snapped its back in half. And just, you know, we did it with like a big, you know, boxing bag that he was wrestling with, and he was snapping in half. And it just didn't have a right kind of fight dynamic to it. And it wasn't like you knew what these things had like spines or anything. Like it just didn't quite work the way I had imagined. And so we had cut a fight scene with Frank and a pilot with the hand. And so all of that scene where he's even, and we used a little bit of it when the shepherd comes in and it's not working. That was all from another scene that we were able to repurpose and use CG over the thing that he fought in camera and make it the tentacle. And so because everything was green screen, there was this flexibility to the footage to make that end fight, I think, a lot more satisfying, that he gets to just stab it in the gut and, you know, cut its head down. Like, he just wanted him to just fucking kill the thing that killed his son.
Yeah.
And so that there was pros and cons. So even now, you know, almost 2.5 years later from when we shot it, it was still like, you know, I'm still glad at the end result.
Yeah, and that's what I liked about the movie, that the alien creatures were practical, most of them. Yeah, men in suits. You can see that in the end credits.
So he was originally fighting a man in suit when he has the claw on the ground, and it had its foot on its leg, and we actually had like a broomstick with the foot on it, and I would use that as the director, like, because I'd always like have the timing pretty good. And there's actually one shot in it in the movie when in the third act when he fights Trent on that platform, and the foot comes down and he rolls out of the way. That's our broomstick shot of just like, it's just a broomstick with like a rubber foot at the end of it. Like, it's so much fun.
Yeah, that's the movie magic.
Yeah,
all tricks are if it works, it works. So yeah, I have another question.
Oh, there's one little cool thing of that I would say too, is that we actually use the same shot twice in 2 different environments, and we changed Frank's shirt with CG. So if you're watching, when he gets thrown by the tentacle and it goes to an overhead shot and he's in his black tank top. And so in the third act, when he's fighting Trent and he gets thrown by him, he lands, and it's a different take, I think, where he lands on the edge and he looks over like this, and it's an overhead shot of him. We put the CG t-shirt in that shot, and it looks perfect. You could never tell that it was a CG t-shirt. But I was just like, I didn't have good enough coverage of when he landed, and I was looking at the other stuff, and I was like, well, this is kind of a cool shot. No one's going to notice, and no one's noticed yet, so I just gave it up. So, but yeah,
I didn't notice. But now I know.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, that's just, again, the advantage of having, you know, making a movie with a visual effects company, is that, you know, I think most people would be like, what? No, you can't change that. But we're like, oh yeah, that's no problem.
No, it's a good mix of practical effects and virtual effects. They blend together well, and the visual effects are pretty good.
Yeah, they're pretty good. And I mean, we did so many for the number; it's insane. You know, like we did almost twice as many as the first movie with a similar size budget. So, you know, some shots are not going to be as great as others, but it's just, you're doing so many, you can't you know, spend the same amount of time that you would if you had half as many shots. So
yeah, of course,
I kind of wanted. I knew that was a trade-off that I was willing to have if I could get more and have it be a bigger adventure story, you know, because I knew even what hydraulics is, you know, not at the A-level shot, it's still pretty damn good, and it's still kind of all would tie together. And some of the really interesting little tricks of making shots better is just kind of, you know, intercutting to reactions more. You know, in letting the actor sell the shot and not just be like, let's watch this visual effect for 10 seconds. You know, go back and check in with the actor and make their acting tell you that it's really happening. And so that was a lesson I learned with Sean Albertson when he came in to do the last edit of the movie. It would just be, I just have a lot longer visual effects shots, and he was like, no, check in with them, and now look, it feels, you know, way better. It was like, he's right. It was a good last pass.
Yeah, good advice. Speaking of advices, my next question is there anyone in your career that you have met that has given you some advice in movie making? If so, would you like to share for like new movie makers out there, like me and others?
Yeah, yeah. There's been a lot of different, a lot of. It's funny now that you ask it, and I'm like blanking out. But yeah, with Sean, like I said, that was the things I learned with him was reactions, and when to just break the rules. I was pretty formalist in my cut before working with him, and it would be entrances and exits, and I wouldn't cross the line, even if it hurt the scene ultimately. And he was just like, well, you have a better looking shot, and yeah, the camera's orientated in the wrong place, but the performance is better, so let's just use it. And so some of that was having to just let go of any sort of insecurity of being like, oh, well, then it's not going to look like I don't know what I'm doing. And he's like, well, the most people are watching movies kind of like emotionally and intuitively. They're not trying to sit there and with a check sheet of like what rules you should be or shouldn't be following. That's not how 99% of us experience filmmaking or watching films. Trying to think of anybody else that was like, obviously Greg and Colin, working with them for so long and seeing their process, it's always been, very visual based. And I came from writing, wasn't the visual guy. So it was basically trying to put together the team around me that would bring me up a level. And that was always like, something that I learned from them. And then working with Chris Probst, who was the guy that I was like, okay, this guy's going to, he's really, really smart, and he loves alien movies. He loves them more than anyone I know. And he knows every single shot and how they were all achieved, because he's kind of, dissected everything that anyone's done in the genre. So, some of that kind of team building, and a little bit like, I guess, doing a self-diagnosis about what you think your strengths are and what you think your weaknesses are, and surrounding yourself with people that you're going to learn from, and that are going to bring you up a level. And I think that's working with Sean then on the editorial side at the end. That was it made me realize about, like, working with other writers and not being so beholden to my own script, and collaborating more, because ultimately it's just going to be, whatever the best movie is makes everybody, a rising tide raises all ships. And so, I think I was able to let go a lot more, as the process went, and just kind of be really happy that if anyone could contribute a good idea, and just basically the best idea won. But yeah, there's a lot of different things that happen along with the movie. And the weirdest part about it now is that, like, realizing that I actually know how to make a movie, because you have to lie so much to get that opportunity in the beginning. You're like, yep, I know. And now it's like being able to kind of read a script and think about what isn't going to work, and feeling the rhythm of scenes, and how hard certain things will be to shoot, and how fun certain things will be to shoot, and how long certain things are going to take to shoot. I just think that the best way to get better at this stuff is to just do it, and to just jump into the deep end, with a vest full of rocks and cinder blocks, and drown in it, and fight your way out. I think that's the best advice.
Learning by doing.
Learning by doing, I think.
Yes. Let's see. I have a few more, but let's make them fast. Let's see. This one. What's your best or funniest memory from the production?
What's the best and funniest memory?
No, best or funny memory from the production. Something funny that happens, or a practical joke or something.
Well, there's one pretty funny one that is, if you obviously saw the blooper reel, and we had to cut this one because it was just a little too much. It's actually right at the end where Frank and Eco are like, "See you next project," and they're kind of messing around. And that was our last setup before Christmas break at the temples. And the angle, if you'll notice the camera there, it's Boyana's close-up, which is kind of the last shot of that scene. And she actually, right where we cut out of that blooper, she puts her hands over a little girl, Alana's ears, and she's like, "You fucking cunts, you're ruining my close-up." I wanted to keep it in for the movie reel, but it was like, because she's got like, are those earmuffs tight enough to her head? I don't know, but it was pretty goddamn hilarious. And that was kind of the Australian language, a little different than the American, but yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah, the bloopers are funny. That was a great way to end the entire movie with
thank you. I did that. And it was just because, and I think we got a much lighter tone, but like before Sean came in to do that last edit, I felt like the tone was too self-serious, and I was like, and some of that is, again, advice about reaction shots, is I was holding my reaction shots too long in the emotional moments and like trying to conjure more emotion than probably should have, And so Sean was just like, if you go back to this back and forth with him in here, there, like it starts to just become like you're trying to make people feel, and instead of just like letting the moment play. And so that kind of overall vibe of just being too intense and serious and not seemingly the right, like you said, like it's a fun movie. And so once we got there, I had already done the blooper reel before that, but once we got there, they kind of cut together perfectly, and it carried that same, like you kind of got the idea, like you're saying, like, oh my God, like everyone making you're like we're a bunch of kids just like with all these toys, blowing shit up, and then they look at it like, yeah, that's what it was, and that's the vibe that I wanted to have. I wrote more jokes and one-liners into the movie, but they never quite, like, there's just different reasons why they didn't work. We have a couple, but there was more that were a little bit more overtly comedic, and it would always just be like, it's right in the middle of this attack scene. It's messing up the flow just to have this one line. Like if I'd had it in this shot while we were still moving and fighting, I think it would work, but I didn't have it that way. So there was little learning things like that about like covering lines in two different parts, if for energy and stuff like that, and not stopping everything dead to deliver a one-liner, but like do it sort of in the middle of the action and let it keep flowing. But yeah, so it made me happy because it's like, especially when you see the movie with a live audience, it's always like a really great way to send it off, and it leaves everybody with a smile on their face. So
yeah, I smiled when I saw Jacob when he's looking around in the office. Where's everybody? And he has picked up this big ass shotgun. It's like much bigger than himself. He just go like this.
Yeah, like he actually says, but the audio is too low because he was off mic there. But he says, "My arms are too short, bro. My arms are too short, bro."
Yeah, they're too short. And then like
I can always tell at a festival if it's going to be a good audience if they laugh when he cocks the shotgun.
Yeah,
if they laugh, it's going to be a good audience. But if people are like, then they don't get it.
It looked funny when he had the shotgun, and I like his last line. His when he meets the alien. That's one of my favorite lines from the movie. But hello, puta. Hello, hola, puta.
Hola, puta.
Hola, puta.
That went over really big in Sitges, obviously, because they're Spanish, and that was the opening night, and they were going crazy for it, and that was still the rowdiest crowd of anybody. But yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Speaking of crowds, you said that watching the movie with the audience, how was it to see your movie on the big screen for the first time with people?
It was surreal that first night, and because they were so it was a 1 a.m. Citrus screening, which is like, you know, that they show movies till 6 in the morning. So I didn't really know what to expect. I'd never been there. I'd never been to I've been to some LA festivals, but I'd never been to like, you know, a genre festival, especially overseas. So, and I was all by myself, you know. It was like this movie that had been like this 2.5-year journey. And, you know, the producers were supposed to come, but it didn't work out. And I ended up being the only one there. And it was just kind of like this really kind of triumphant moment. But then I was just like, walked home alone. And it was like, did that really just happen? And the reaction there was good. And then again, the next night, it was a little later. It was a much bigger auditorium, and it still seemed like it was playing well. And I just, you know, people were kind of trickling in like, oh, it's more fun than I expected and stuff. And so then the next weekend was Toronto After Dark. And that was when it was like, it really popped. Like that was a great, you know, a great festival that they put on up there, and the audience was packed, and it was like, you know, the Q&A was a lot of fun. That was when I kind of realized like, oh, I think, you know, people might like this, you know. That's when it sort of hit me. And then the Den of Geek review came out, and sort of the whole thing changed from, you know, what I thought it was, this reception was going to be, to now, like, you know, getting positive reviews from like the New York Times was nothing that I thought was going to happen, you know, with this movie. So it became, you know, it really couldn't have asked for a better experience this fall, in the way people that received it, for something this kind of weird and out there, for people to kind of give it a chance and have fun with it is all you can ask as a, you know, a genre filmmaker. So
yeah,
it's great.
Then you had a little review from a guy from Sweden that makes video reviews. Now, when I started the movie, I thought it was great, and I thought, now I have to do this one in English, because I wanted to spread the word about this movie, and make tell people to watch it, because most of my friends that have seen the first one, and they didn't like it, and I don't want to see the sequel, but watch the sequel, it's pretty good, it's a good movie, and they're like, nah.
Yeah. So, and it still hasn't had a ton of eyeballs on it, you know. The VOD release in the UK was really successful. Signature did a great job with it there. In the US, we did well too. And it's like, you know, right now we're still in VOD and Redbox, but we're going to be coming to a streaming platform in the next few months. And a lot of people, I think, are going to, it's going to get way more eyeballs on it. And so that's exciting for me to, you know, kind of got to have a little bit of everything with this one. You know, we did a robust festival run, and then we did a week theatrical, which I saw it both weekends in LA. And now the VOD and the Blu-ray, you know, it's cool. Like I went to, I went to my wife's hometown in January, and I bought a Blu-ray there, and I was just back at my parents' house, and I bought 2 Blu-rays, like the last 2 at the Walmart. And so it's just kind of cool. Like, you know, this thing is at a store.
Yeah.
You know, it's still just that like pinch me. It's finally done. Like I'm still, you know, have those. Like, what if I woke up and it was still a year ago and it's not done? It's like, no. So you know and then to, you know, now within the next few months, to you know, once it's streaming, it'll be interesting to see what the reaction will be from people there. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it will do great, because it's a great movie. It's a fun movie, and the quotes on the covers, basically just tells you how it is.
That's the cover I want. You've seen the US cover is nowhere near as good.
Oh, this one is good. It's a paper.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, I need that one. I still don't have that. My producer has one for me, and he hasn't sent it.
You can buy it from me. No, I'm kidding. The quotes on the cover sums up the entire movie. It's thrilling. It's a blast, beyond electrifying, and that's some pretty good describing of the movie.
I wasn't complaining with that. No,
it's some good shit. I recommend people to get Beyond Skyline on Blu-ray or DVD, or watch it when it's on VOD or streaming when it comes, and just watch it and have a fun time with it. So
just watch it, man.
Yeah, just watch it. It's a good movie. I have one bonus question, a quick one.
Uh-huh.
Who would win in a fight, Frank or Eco?
I mean, it's. I think there's no good answer to this question. There's also no real wrong answer because I think it can go either way on any day.
Yeah.
I think Eco, if you've seen him now, if you follow him on Instagram, has gained quite a bit of muscle.
Yeah.
He went through some real training for mile 22, and he's a big boy. Frank, even when we started, he's leaner now, so it'll be interesting for a rematch. But I think at the time, Frank outweighed him by a good amount of and once you have weight, there is that advantage, but Eco's very fast.
Yeah.
So it'll be, I think if it was boxing, if they just get into a boxing ring, I think Frank's going to win a boxing match.
Yeah, me too.
But I think if it's a knife fight, my money is on Eco.
Yeah, no, this is
which is what we kind of made the movie like. Okay, this is fist. He's got very fast hands, but then when it comes down to a fight for survival, and Eco's been he comes from a different world. That
Eco's I think
American guys aren't aren't fighting like that in the gyms of Los Angeles. So yeah, I think it just depends on the rules. It's like Conor McGregor versus Mayweather. Where are they?
Let's call it a tie. So
yeah.
Yeah. All right, Liam. That was my questions, and was very very fun to do this.
Great. I'm actually writing Skyline 3 right now. I really want to say.
For real?
Things to happen next. Yeah, I'm halfway through the script.
Oh, cool.
And it kind of takes off from the end of the last one, and so it's not to give too much away, but it's out there.
Yeah, I understand. So
yeah, so that hopefully there's some news on that in the next few months. There's a couple other martial arts and sci-fi and horror projects that I'm working on, but definitely sticking with genre.
Yeah.
And always trying to fuse genres together. I don't want to just do straight anything. What I loved so much about this experience was kind of finding that sweet spot of the chocolate and the peanut butter where you get the best of both worlds. So that's what I'm really interested in, just exploring that more on the next movie.
Oh, exciting. I'm looking forward to the next one. So,
all right.
I appreciate this very much. It was, like I said, very fun. Yeah. And I wish you the best. And thank you for taking your time to do this interview.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Yeah. And for the rest of the world, go watch this movie.
And have 3 drinks while you do it.
Yeah, that too. And popcorn. All right, everyone. Say bye to the people.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.